The council chamber was silent. Every alien leader, every powerful species in the galaxy, had refused the mission. The Deathworld was too dangerous, too deadly, a place where nothing survives for long. But then, the doors opened. A group of humans walked in calm, almost smiling. Their commander looked around, said just 5 words that froze the room. So that's it? No one knew that what waited on that world was far worse than anyone imagined. They said the Deathworld would kill anything that dared to land there. They were wrong. The council chamber was silent. Every alien, leader, every powerful species in the galaxy had refused the mission. The Deathworld was too dangerous, too deadly, a place where storms could tear metal apart, where the ground itself could swallow armies whole, where something ancient and hostile was building a weapon that could end entire star systems. The last volunteer had never returned, and then the doors opened. A small group of humans walked in. Calm, almost smiling. Their commander looked around the room, said just 5 words that froze the air. So, that's it? No one in that chamber knew that what waited on that world was far worse than anyone imagined. The Galactic Council hall stretched wide and tall, its ceiling lost in the shadows above. Rings of light hovered over a polished black floor, reflecting the shapes of dozens of alien leaders. Holographic projections shimmered in the air, displaying the grim faces of rulers who were too far to attend in person. In the center, a great circular table pulsed with red light. Over it hovered a single word. It's written in bold alien glyphs and translated into a 12 tongues. Deathworld Mission. Immediate response. A recurred. The warning light beat like a heartbeat. Slow, steady, as if counting down to disaster. No. One spoke. Every seat at the table was filled, but the air was thick with dread. Across from the council leader sat the heavy, scaled form of a Drexarian warlord, his claws curled tight, his gaze fixed on the floor. Beside him, the insectoid, emissary of the Varix hive, twitched its antennae nervously. Even the cold, logic-driven Varians avoided eye contact. The council leader, as an ancient alien whose eyes had seen centuries of war, broke the silence. "This is suicide," he said, his voice flat. "No living thing can survive there." Murmurs rose among the delegates. A hologram displayed the planet, a swirling sphere of black clouds and violent storms. The surface was cracked and jagged, molten rivers cutting through mountains. Sensors recorded winds strong enough to strip flesh from bone. Oceans boiling under the heat of relentless lightning strikes. "This world," the leader continued, "is unlike any we have seen. It is unstable. It is hostile to all life. Yet something is building there, a structure of enormous power." Another hologram appeared, a blurry image captured by a distant drone. Towers of dark metal rose like teeth from the surface. At the center was a vast sphere, glowing with unnatural light. "Our intelligence suggests it is a weapon. A weapon capable of erasing entire systems." The Drexarian warlord snarled softly. "Send a fleet. Bombard it from orbit." The leader shook his head. "The storms disrupt targeting. Orbital bombardment is impossible. It must be destroyed from within." What? The ripple of unease moved through the chamber. That is why the mission was offered to all council members. And yet, his gaze swept the room. Every race has refused. Silence again. "They call it a death world for a reason," the insectoid Varix emissary clicked. "Our kind cannot survive there. None of us can."
A low hum filled the hall.
As the great doors at the far end began to open, every alien turned toward the sound. Boots echoed on the floor. A small group of humans stepped inside. They wore dark, reinforced armor with green combat plating. Their gear clinked softly as they walked, weapons slung casually at their sides. Visors reflecting the council's red warning light. At their front was a tall man, his hair cut short, his jaw set like stone. His eyes swept the room, not with fear, but with calm assessment. The Drexarian's claws tightened. "Humans," he muttered, disbelief in his voice. The man stopped at the center of the table. He rested one hand on the edge, leaned forward. Slightly, and let the silence hang just long enough to make every alien lean in. Then he smiled, not the kind of smile that comes from humor, but from someone who had already decided the outcome of the fight. "So," he said, his voice low but carrying to every corner of the hall. "That's it?" Gasps and murmurs erupted around the room. The humans behind him stood motionless, their faces unreadable. "You volunteer?" the council leader asked, leaning forward. "Do you understand the danger?" The man chuckled under his breath. "Danger?" He glanced back at his team. "We've seen worse." The Varric's emissary twitched violently. "You cannot know what you face." The last crew to set foot there died within minutes. The human commander's expression didn't change. "Then we'll last longer." For a moment, no one spoke. The silence wasn't fear this time. It was disbelief. And a flicker of something else. Respect. Somewhere far above the chamber, the great warning light continued its slow, steady pulse, counting down to the moment the humans would step onto the most dangerous planet in the galaxy, and no one, not even the humans, yet knew what truly waited for them there. The moment the council meeting ended, the humans were led to a private chamber. Thick metal doors sealed shut behind them, muting the murmurs and arguments still echoing outside. A round table in the center flickered to life, projecting the Deathworld in cold, sharp detail. Storms rolled over its cracked surface like living shadows. Volcanoes burned bright against endless black rock. Even through the hologram, it looked hostile. Alive. Colonel Jack Harlan leaned on the edge of the table, studying it. The corners of his mouth lifted slightly, not in amusement, but recognition. "Reminds me of home," he muttered. One of the alien advisors, a pale, crystalline being named Syrinx, tilted its head. "Your home is not like this. This planet kills within minutes." Harlan didn't look up. "You think this is new too?" "Us? Our world tried to kill us every day for thousands of years. Ice ages, plagues, wars, predators that hunted us while we hunted them. We learned to adapt, or we died and we didn't die." Across the table, Lieutenant Reyes tightened the straps on her armor. "Besides," she said with a grin, "dangerous planets have a way of underestimating humans." Syrinx's voice cracked like breaking glass. "This is not your fight. If you fail, your species will be wiped from existence." "Then we won't fail," Harlan replied flatly. The next hours were a blur of preparation. Weapons racks were unlocked, and humans began choosing gear like soldiers picking tools for a job they'd done 100 times. Heavy rifles, magnetic grenades, armor reinforced against acid and heat. Drones, shaped like steel insects, buzzed to life, feeding live data into their visors. From a side chamber, the council provided mission files. Maps of the Deathworld's surface were incomplete, half of them corrupted by storms, the other half showing landscapes so warped they looked like nightmares. Sensor logs showed flashes of enormous movement in the clouds, something big enough to block out the sky. Most species would have stared at those images and turned away. The humans leaned in closer. When the last weapon was locked into place, Harlan gathered his team. They formed a loose circle, helmets under their arms, the red holographic glow painting their faces. "Listen up," he said. "Nobody out there wants to touch this mission. That's fine. We're not nobody. We go in, we find the weapon, we take it apart, and we come home. Simple." Reyes smirked. "Simple. Another soldier, Corporal." Vance laughed under his breath. "That's what you said on Lorne's Prime, and we survived, didn't we?" Harlan replied without missing a beat. In the corner, Syrinx observed them quietly, its crystalline form trembling in what could only be called disbelief. To most in the galaxy, humans were reckless, unpredictable, and dangerously stubborn. To Syrinx, watching them now, they looked like something worse, something that made even Deathworlds nervous. Outside the chamber, the Council's escort stood waiting to guide them to their warship. As the doors opened, Harlan slung his rifle across his back and glanced over his shoulder at Syrinx. "Tell your council not to worry," he said with a small grin. "We've been to hell before. We came back with souvenirs." They walked out without hesitation, their boots echoing down the steel corridor. Somewhere beyond the station walls, the Deathworld turned under its storm-choked sky, waiting for the humans to arrive. The human warship Valkyrie was unlike anything the other Council species had seen. Its black hull drank in the light, a design meant to vanish against the darkness of space. Engines rumbled deep within its frame, low and steady, like the growl of some ancient predator waiting to strike. Inside, the crew moved with calm efficiency, every weapon checked twice, every system tested for the 100th time. The alien escort ships that had been assigned to guide them refused to approach, closer than the safe zone. Beyond that line, the Deathworld storms reached out like claws, tearing apart anything that dared to enter. The escorts sent their final transmission, a brief, formal farewell, before turning away. Their silhouettes fading into the void from the Valkyrie's bridge, the planet filled the forward view. Even from this distance, it was a thing of nightmare beauty. Vast storms the size of continents swirled endlessly, lightning striking with enough force to blind the sensors. Oceans boiled under an atmosphere thick with toxic gases. Jagged mountains stabbed into the clouds, their peaks glowing from rivers of molten rock. The ship's AI broke the silence. Survival probability on planetary surface, 3%. No one looked concerned. In fact, Lieutenant Reyes leaned back in her chair and smirked. That's higher than I expected. Colonel Harlan stood at the center of the bridge, his hands behind his back. His eyes were locked on the planet as though it were a personal challenge. Bring us in, he ordered. The Valkyrie's thrusters burned bright, cutting across the darkness toward the roiling clouds below. The turbulence began before they even touched the atmosphere, violent shudders that made the hull groan. Outside the viewport, flashes of light illuminated shapes moving in the storm. Some were clouds, others. Corporal Vance frowned. At his console, something's out there. Big. Moving against the wind. The AI chimed again. Unidentified aerial forms detected. Size estimate exceeds 1 kilometer in length. The crew exchanged glances, but no one slowed the descent. As the ship punched through the upper atmosphere, the noise became a constant. Roar, the scream of wind, the hammer of thunder, the deep rumble of volcanic eruptions. The sky itself seemed alive, shifting and writhing as though trying to push them back. Then, through a break in the clouds, they saw it. A structure, impossibly large, rising from the ground like the skeleton of some alien god. Black towers, spiraled upward, surrounded by rings of machinery that pulsed with a cold, unnatural light. Even from miles away, it radiated menace. That's our target, Harlan said quietly. Lightning struck near the towers, the glow reflecting off the weapon's surface. Something moved along its base, dark shapes, dozens of them, maybe hundreds, patrolling. The AI's voice lowered, almost as if it too understood the danger. Recommend mission abort. Harlan shook his head. Recommend you keep us steady. The Valkyrie descended deeper into the storm, its armored frame shuddering under the strain. In the cargo bay, dropships were already warming their engines. Soldiers climbing aboard, their armor locking into place. Drones powered up, their optics glowing faintly in the dim light. Above them, the bridge crew worked without pause. The Deathworld wasn't just a planet anymore. It was an opponent, one that seemed to watch them approach. By the time the Valkyrie reached drop altitude, the entire crew could feel it. The sense that something on the surface already knew. They were coming and was waiting. The Valkyrie's dropships tore free from the warship's belly, engines screaming against the storm. The moment they entered the lower atmosphere, the turbulence hit like a fist. Lightning flared so close it left afterimages in their eyes. Wind howled against the hull, making the metal groan. Inside the lead dropship, Colonel Harlan sat strapped into his seat, helmet in his lap. Across from him, Lieutenant Reyes grinned through the chaos. Feels like home, she shouted over the roar. Your home must hate you, Vance muttered, tightening his harness as the ship bucked again. Outside, the Deathworld revealed itself. In flashes between the storm clouds, the ground was a jagged wasteland of black stone and glowing rivers of molten rock. Acid rain hissed as it struck the dropship's reinforced plating, leaving streaks of corrosion behind. The pilots fought. The controls, as the storm worsened. In the distance, one of the escort drones caught a stray lightning strike and disintegrated in a burst of sparks. The air was thick with particles that interfered with sensors, forcing the humans to rely on their eyes and instincts. Then, through a break in the clouds, they saw movement. Something massive, easily, the size of a small building prowled. The rocky ground below, it moved on 6 legs, its armored hide blending with the terrain, glowing eyes scanning the storm. Even from altitude, the soldiers could feel the weight of its presence. Predator class. Unknown species, the AI, reported in a clipped tone. Recommend avoiding, noted Harlan said, though his gaze stayed locked on the creature until the clouds swallowed it again. The landing zone came into view, a flat stretch of blackened rock half a kilometer from the target structure. As the dropships descended, the ground seemed to shiver. Cracks spider-webbed across the landing site, glowing faintly as molten heat seeped through. "Make it quick," Harlan ordered. The dropships hit the ground hard, hydraulics groaning. Ramps slammed down, and the humans poured out, weapons up, visors glowing faintly in the darkness. The air was thick, heavy, and toxic, but their armor systems kept it out. Every breath they took was filtered, processed, and recycled. The moment they formed a perimeter, the storm shifted as if reacting to their arrival. Wind tore at them, flinging shards of black glass-like rock through the air. Somewhere in the distance, the deep metallic roar of machinery rose above the thunder. Reyes swept her rifle toward the sound. "That's coming from the target." Vance scanned the horizon with the drone feed. "No, that's moving toward us." The ground trembled again. The soldiers tightened formation. Through the haze of rain and dust, shapes began to emerge. Not the massive predator from before. These were smaller, faster, and mechanical. Spider-like machines, dozens of them, their legs slicing into the rock as they closed in. Their bodies glowed faintly, the same cold light as the towers in the distance. "Contact," Harlan said into his com's voice, calm. "We hold them here." The first volley of gunfire lit up the storm, tracer rounds streaking through the darkness. The machines shattered under the impact, but more kept coming. Climbing over the wreckage of their fallen above them, lightning tore the sky open, illuminating the alien weapon on the horizon, a black silhouette against the fire and storm. It pulsed once, faint but unmistakable, as if acknowledging their presence, and in that moment, Harlan knew. Whatever they had come here to destroy, already knew they were here. The spider-like machines lay in smoldering heaps around the humans, their glowing cores still twitching with fading energy. Steam hissed from the shattered armor plating as the acidic rain poured down, sizzling on every surface it touched. Squad reloaded in silence, their helmets streaked with grime and lightning glare. "Paths clear," Vance said, though his voice held no comfort. The machines had delayed them, which meant something was watching. They pushed forward across the uneven ground, boots crunching over shards of volcanic glass. The alien structure loomed larger with every step, a dark fortress rising out of the storm, its towers spiraling toward the clouds like claws. The closer they came, the more the air seemed to hum, a deep vibration that rattled their bones through their armor. At the base of the structure, they found the entrance, a wide arch of black metal, carved with strange, jagged symbols. Reyes stepped forward, running a gloved hand over the surface. "This isn't just a weapon," she said quietly. "This is alive." The AI in Harlan's helmet whispered in his ear. Energy readings indicate a continuous buildup.
Whatever.
It's preparing for activation. Inside, the corridors were unnaturally smooth, illuminated only by faint lines of cold blue light running along the walls. The sound of the storm outside faded, replaced by a low mechanical heartbeat that echoed through the hallways. They moved. Cautiously, drones scouting ahead, rifles sweeping every corner. But the deeper they went, the more it felt like the corridors were shifting, subtly changing direction, as if the building itself was guiding them somewhere. Then they reached the chamber. It was vast, circular, and dominated by a single object. At its center, a sphere the size of a shuttle, suspended in the air by thick black supports. Its surface was covered in intricate patterns of glowing light, shifting and crawling like living veins. Around it, alien engineers tall, thin creatures with multi-jointed limbs, worked in silence, their eyes glowing with the same cold light as the machine. The humans froze in the shadows, watching. The sphere pulsed, and a holographic projection appeared above it, a map of the galaxy. Slowly, one star system after another flared red, and vanished. Harlan's eyes narrowed. "They're showing a test." Reyes frowned. "No, they're showing a plan." The projection zoomed in, focusing on one star system in particular. It rotated slowly until the soldiers saw it clearly: a yellow sun, blue oceans, white clouds, green continents, Earth. For a moment, no one spoke. The storm outside could have been 1,000 miles away. All that existed was the cold, mechanical heartbeat of the weapon, the silent confirmation that humanity wasn't just on a dangerous mission, they were on a race to save their home. The engineers noticed them. An alien voice shrieked across the chamber, echoing through the metal walls. The creatures moved fast, their limbs bending in unnatural ways as they lunged for cover and reached for weapons. Harlan didn't hesitate. Go loud. Gunfire erupted, the sound deafening in the enclosed space. Sparks flew as rounds tore into alien machinery. The engineers screamed in a language no translator could process, their bodies twisting as they fell. But even as the humans fought, the sphere pulsed faster, its light growing, its hum deepening. Vance shouted over the coms. "It's powering up." Reyes planted a charge against one of the black supports. "Then we blow it before it fires." But as the timer on the charge began its steady countdown, the weapon responded not with silence, but with movement. The supports twisted, and the sphere began to rotate, locking itself into a launch position and deepen its glowing patterns. Something looked back at them. The chamber shook as the sphere's glow intensified, casting long shadows that crawled over the walls like living things. The hum became a roar, deep, steady, and vibrating through the floor beneath their boots. Alan's visor filled with warning alerts as the weapon's energy reading spiked. "Charge is set." "Out," Reyes yelled, her voice sharp over the coms then. "We're leaving," Harlan replied, motioning toward the corridor. They fell back in a tight formation, rifles sweeping the shadows. Behind them, the alien engineers who still lived scrambled toward consoles, their thin fingers moving desperately over control panels. The sphere continued to rotate, locking into a launch alignment aimed far beyond the Deathworld's horizon, aimed straight at Earth. The storm outside seemed to sense their intent. By the time they reached the outer doors, the wind was screaming, tearing at them with hurricane force. Acid rain lashed against their armor, sizzling where it struck, burning small pits into the plating. Vance's voice came over the coms, tense. Movement, its multiple contacts closing fast. Out of the storm, the spider-like machines reappeared, twice as many as before, their legs digging into the rock, glowing cores pulsing like angry hearts. They moved low and fast, weaving between jagged boulders, cutting off the path to the dropships. "Push through," Harlan barked. The humans charged, weapons thundering in the darkness. Sparks exploded from shattered machine bodies, but the storm made aiming almost impossible. Each lightning strike illuminated dozens more enemies. Closing in from every direction, overhead, the Valkyrie's pilot called down through the coms. "We can't hold position in this weather much longer. If you're not aboard in 5 minutes, you're staying." They fought forward, the ground trembling under each step. And then the tremor grew. It wasn't the machines this time. The ground ahead split open, molten rock spilling out in a violent spray. From that glowing rift, the massive six-legged predator they'd glimpsed earlier emerged. Its armored hide shimmered with the same cold light as the alien weapon, its eyes locking onto the humans instantly. With a roar that cut through wind and thunder, it charged. "Not now," Reyes muttered, firing into its face. Bullets sparked harmlessly off its armor. Harlan tossed a grenade, the blast rocking it back for only a moment before it lunged again. The soldier split, forcing it to choose a target. It went for Vance and missed only because he dove behind a shattered boulder. In the chaos, the AI in Harlan's helmet spoke flatly. Charges will detonate in 90 seconds. The Predator roared again, tail lashing through the air with enough force to shatter stone. Machines swarmed in its wake, forcing the humans into a brutal close-quarters fight. Blades and rifle butts became as important as bullets, every movement aimed at survival, not victory. Through the storm, the silhouette of the dropships finally appeared, lights blinking desperately through the sheets of rain. "Move," Harlan shouted. Now, they ran. The Predator gave chase, tearing through machines that got in its way, acid rain sizzling off its armored hide. One by one, the soldiers dove into the dropships as the ramp began to close. Reyes was the last. One in rolling under the ramp, just as it sealed, the dropship's engines roared to life, lifting them into the storm as lightning split the sky behind them. In the distance, through the raging clouds, a blinding flash lit up the horizon. The charges had detonated. The alien structure buckled and collapsed, the weapon's cold glow vanishing into fire and smoke. But as the dropships climbed toward the waiting Valkyrie, the AI spoke again. Structural collapse confirmed.
Ow.
But energy readings indicate secondary activation. Harlan stared out the viewport at the burning ruins. Meaning. The AI paused. Meaning. The weapon wasn't destroyed. The Valkyrie's hangar doors sealed shut, blocking out the howl of the Deathworld storms. The dropships settled with heavy thuds, steam hissing from their scorched hulls. Armor scratched, visors cracked, weapons half-melted the humans. Looked like they had walked out of hell, but they were breathing. Harlan pulled off his helmet, sweat streaming down his face. Around him the others did the same, exhaustion etched into every movement. Reyes slumped against the bulkhead, eyes closing for a moment, before the AI's voice cut through the quiet. Secondary activation confirmed. Our target power core remains functional. Estimated time to firing sequence, 12 hours. A cold silence spread through the hangar. The alien weapon was still alive, still aimed at Earth. Vance spoke first, voice flat. We hit it with explosives. Buried it in molten rock, and it's still online? What is that thing made of? Reyes wiped the rain from her face and looked at Harlan. We going back? Harlan didn't answer right away. He stepped toward the forward observation deck, the stars spilling through the armored glass. In the far distance, the Deathworld was just a tiny, angry sphere, its surface still glowing from the destruction they'd unleashed. But somewhere beneath that glow, the weapon pulsed like a heartbeat. The cums crackled. A new voice, older, calmer, came from the Galactic Council link. Human Commander, the Council recommends immediate withdrawal. The mission is a failure. No other species will risk a second attempt. You've done enough. Harlan's lips curled into something that wasn't quite a smile. That's the difference between you and us, he said quietly. We don't stop just because something's impossible. The alien delegate tried again. It's suicide. The Deathworld will kill you before the weapon does. Harlan turned to his crew. Every one of them bloodied, exhausted, bruised, met his eyes without hesitation. He keyed the Council. This isn't our first Deathworld. Hangar filled with the sound of loading rifles, chambering rounds, and sealing helmets. Reyes grinned, sliding a fresh magazine into her weapon. Vance leaned against the bulkhead and muttered, 12 hours. Plenty of time. Engines roared. Valkyrie turned, breaking orbit, diving back toward the Deathworld's storm-choked skies. The crew moved with grim determination, as if going home was never even an option. Outside, lightning split the clouds, casting the burning surface in stark, violent light. Somewhere deep below, the alien weapon continued to awaken, and above it, the humans were coming back.